Good morning to all my friends and family, and welcome to this episode of Jim's 5am Club. It's only now, after maybe 10 or 20 years, that I really start to appreciate this beautiful installation here at Cockle Bay, where we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, I think it is, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11 brolgers parading around a mystical billabong and just showing joy and having the time of their lives. And the book summary that I'm going to do today is a book entitled The More of Less by an author known and named Joshua Becker. And it's a book that's going to delve into decluttering and how to make more with less in your life. And hopefully by the end of this lesson, by the end of this book, we can learn some life hacks that will free us up from the clutter and from the many burdens that we have in our lives. It's sad to think that over the next couple of years, this Cockle Bay Wharf will be razed to the ground, will be demoed, and another development site will rise from the ground here. So this whole area here is earmarked for redevelopment, and from my understanding is that it will commence the building will commence once Mirvac complete their work on the other side of Darling Harbour there. So maybe the next 2 or 3 years we'll see this area here, which has only been here for about 20 years, being redeveloped. But that's the beauty about Sydney. It doesn't stand still, and it just continues to grow, develop and improve, so much so that it is now one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and a place which has a beat, a soul, and an amazing lifestyle for those who are gifted with the opportunity of living here and working here. And I have the added gift that I work down here at Darling Harbour on that development site over there, which is going to be a hotel, it's going to be residential apartments, and it's going to be the site of the new IMAX theatre, which is going to be lots of fun. Anyway, without further ado, let's continue on our walk and talk and see what we can learn from this book entitled The More of Less. I like that title, Getting More from Less. So this book, as I alluded to earlier, is a book which has a number of lessons on decluttering your life, decluttering your mental capacities and spaces in order to make room, to make valuable room for what matters most to you. It's an important point, that. It's not about making room just to fill it up again with crap. What we're saying here, and what this author is saying, is it's important to empty your cup, to clear room, in order to fill it with things that matter most to you and bring you endless joy. So an important lead-in, I guess, to enable us to focus a little bit more intently in terms of what we are about to learn here. I was a little bit amazed actually, and overwhelmed by a statistic that the author uses in this book, where he says that most households in the developed world, I may add as well, that most households currently own around about, and this is just a ballpark figure, but some will be more, some will be less, but this is absolutely astounding, that the average household currently own 300,000, I repeat, 300,000 possessions. And I've lived in the same house since 1978, and you can imagine the amount of hoarding, given that I lived there with my parents, with my wife, with my two youngest daughters, my two granddaughters. So that house there must have significantly more than the 300,000 possessions that the author ascribes to. But just think about it. We just have, and we just own far too much stuff, and we're overburdened and spend too much time and money and effort organising, reorganising, managing and maintaining all of that stuff that we own, that we've accumulated, that we've hoarded, not only in our houses but in other people's houses and in other people's lives. So it's an opportunity to reflect on this statistic and reflect on our own lives and just ask ourselves, why? Why do we need to own so many things? What is it about these things that make them special to us, given that the majority of these things are buried in a garage, under the house, in cupboards that we haven't touched or seen for decades? As I say, I haven't moved out of my house ever since I was 19 years of age or 18. I've lived in the same house, and there are things in cupboards that haven't been touched, moved for decades, for a very, very long time. And there are things that we don't touch, there are things that we don't see, but there are also other things that we touch and see all the time. And what the author is saying is that we need to be discerning. We need to spend some time trying to figure out what we need, what we love, and what we don't need, and to empty out those spaces in our houses, in our minds, in our lives, including relationships that no longer serve us. And we do that in order to make valuable room to welcome in other things. Because if you're crowded, if your cup is full, then you can't really make room, you can't really accept any other things in your life, because you're jam-packed. You just don't have the ability, the mental space, the energy to be able to deal with it, and hence we'll push it away. We'll push away opportunities, we'll push away relationships, we'll push away many things in our lives because we just don't have the mental space, the physical space, the emotional space, the spiritual space to be able to welcome, accept it and nurture it. So in our lives, sadly, what has happened and what is going to continue to happen for many people, if they don't lift their game and don't observe what's happening, is that we're all going to become consumerists and incessant consumerists, and lose touch with what makes us happy and fulfilled. Because the bottom line, the great learning from this book, and the lessons that we've learnt over time. I'm 62, going on 63 this year, and I'm starting to understand now better than anything else that you get more in life by having less, hence the title of this book, The More of Less. You don't need multiple cars, you don't need multiple properties, you don't need multiple friends and relationships. You don't need to go visiting lots and lots of different countries, because you can make do with fewer things and fewer places to visit, as long as you sit back and identify what it is that makes you tick, what brings you joy, and to try and do a little bit more of those things. So the first formal point that comes from this author is that we need to remove and create a special space for what you love most, and to understand, and this is very, very important, you need to come to an understanding that you can't buy happiness. Doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter how many shops you visit, doesn't matter how many holiday locations you go to. You really can't buy happiness, and you can't bank and go back to happiness. So things that have made you happy in the past aren't going to continue to make you happy in the future, because those moments, those experiences have disappeared. They are no longer part of your present. They're finished. They are just a figment of our imagination. And even though we hold on to things, hoping that one day we're able to relive the glory days of those past experiences, the reality is that those moments have all but evaporated and vanished. And what we need to do is we need to realize that, and to make a decision to cut away from our past, and not to be too sentimental, not to be too nostalgic, because if you spend too much time in nostalgia, if you spend too much time in your past, then it may end up being a prison that you check into, that you can't escape. And as a lot of psychologists allude to, the people who spend too much time living in their past and dwelling in their past tend to be people who suffer depression, and vice versa. On the other hand, people who spend too much time worrying about their future and planning their future tend to be anxious. So the key to life is to live the here and now, to be fully present and to make the most of this moment. And by making the most and focusing on this moment, time will slow down for you. You know, you don't have to spend too much time in your past or your future. Just enjoy the moment. Just have the things surrounding you that are going to give you the joy, are going to help you express your calling in this particular moment, and not the stuff that came from a former version of you, a former life, a former time. So the call to action for this author here is to clear out our spaces, clear out our physical spaces, our mental spaces, our emotional spaces, our spiritual spaces, to make the most of what we have available to us at this point in time. Is make room, make plenty of room for family, for health, and for whatever you care about, rather than empty, cold things. It's really powerful. It's a really powerful point the author is making. that we need to empty our spaces to make room for the things that matter most to us. And what matters most to us may be different to the things that matter most to your parents, your grandparents, your uncles, your aunts, and other people in your life. Because at the end of the day, we all have our own special calling. We are all going to live a very different life. We're all going to have and experience a different past, a different present, a different here and now. I am here, you're somewhere else. And we're all most definitely going to have a different future. And the last thing you want to do is to look back over your life and to live with regret. To say, I didn't do this, I didn't do that, I didn't make the most of what I had because I had too much clutter in my life. I had too many distractions. My cup was too full. I couldn't make time for family. I couldn't make time for friends. I couldn't make time for work because I was too busy managing, maintaining, and reorganizing the stuff that I was being overwhelmed with in my life because I wasn't prudent and diligent in managing and taking care of it and culling the things out of my life that weren't adding value or allowing me to make value by giving me space, giving me time, and giving me the freedom that I needed in order to express myself. So we don't want to live our lives in regret later on, and in order to not live with regret, you need to be quite vicious with your time whilst you have it in order to make the most of it is the key message. What we need to understand is that we're living in the world where we're constantly under attack, and the marketeers and the advertisers out there know exactly what to do, how to say it, in order to entice us, seduce us, and take our money. But not only to take our money, but also to fill our houses, fill our garages, fill our minds, fill our lives with things that we don't really need, or we don't really need anymore. It's amazing how many people have wardrobes full of clothes that they've never worn and will never wear. We've got garages full of stuff which is now rubbish, and yet we've got our cars, our assets out in the baking sun, in the rain, in the cold, depreciating at a rapid rate when they could be in the garage, safe and undercover. But we can't get them in the garage because our garage is full of rubbish, is an absolute tip. It's not only our garages, our homes, our wardrobes, but our minds also are full of stuff which is continually troubling us, continues to ruminate over and over again. And the human mind can only deal with a number of things from day to day, and you need to clear out things in order to be able to think clearly and to deal effectively with the things that you need to deal with in your life, and to be careful not to have the colloquially known open mind, because what happens is that if you're not diligent and discerning and you do not guard your mind, the marketeers, the influencers, the various media outlets, the vast amounts of data and information that are constantly bombarding us will enter our private spaces, our valuable spaces, and crowd out our lives and not allow us to make room, as I say, for our own thoughts, for our thoughts and actions that are God-pleasing, because you just will be just full of other stuff. And as we say, if you've got too many possessions, then you're constantly thinking about organising, reorganising, maintaining those possessions, and you're just overwhelmed. You know, your checklist, your to-do list is forever full, and you just don't have room to add further things to that. So what you do is you resolve not to have further troubles, further challenges in your life, so you check out of life, which is also another problem. You know, this book, this author wants you to check into life and to make the most of your life, but in order to do that, you need to take charge today. You need to start clearing out the rubbish today, and not to allow further things to accumulate. And as the author says, you need to be able to make more with less, which is a powerful image and a powerful message. And to be careful where we spend our money. Big business knows how to make us spend, and how to make us spend it on things that are not going to give you significant long-term value. As my mother used to say, you know, buy fewer things, but buy things which are going to be of better quality. Buy things that are going to continue to generate joy, are going to continuing to give you gifts. So we need to once again be thoughtful in terms of how we spend our money. The next thing that the author tells us here in this book is to donate our unwanted items that bring fulfillment to other people. Just giving away things will make you feel happy. Rehousing, rebirthing things for other people. So there's some opportunity there to give away things that are going to give joy to somebody else, but will not ever give you joy by just you holding on to them, other than by being selfish. And at the end of the day, once again, the key lesson from this author is that people are more important and will always be more important than possessions. You're better off investing in people, and our Christian calling is to serve God with all our heart, mind and soul, worship God with all our heart, mind and soul, and also to love one another as we love ourselves. So we need to invest in ourselves, we need to love ourselves first, we need to love God in order to then have enough for our cup to overrunneth, so that we can be generous with other people. So that's the key message. So at the end of the day, it's more about people than possessions. Helping others is a gift that keeps on giving, and learn to have more by having fewer things in our lives and not being a prisoner who's burdened by their possessions and their irrational dreams and irrational fears. Anyway, take care everybody, have a good rest of the day. Wishing you all the best on this beautiful Thursday, and we'll chat again soon. Yassas from Jim's 5am Club.